Hello and welcome to the MBC Sports Podcast Season 2, Episode 6 this week. My name's Andrew Sellover. I'm joined again by Connell Scruggs and JP Eisenhower. Today, we will be talking Marist football, recapping last week's big win over Flowery Branch, and previewing the 4A Region 7 Region Championship against Blessed Trinity this Friday. We'll then take a look all around the league in GHSA, and then move on to college football, and then the MLB playoffs to wrap it up today. First off, last week, Marist taking on Flowery Branch, a dominant win 27-0.
Yeah, it was really a great game. You saw the Marist defense really shut down quarterback number 12, David Renard. They really had no air attack, and they really shut down the ground game well with Ellingham. You really expected him to be able to have a lot of good burst runs. He really didn't have that explosive run. They were able to really contain him by stacking the box and really game planned well for him.
And I've said this every week, the defense continues to prove they're legit. They forced two fumbles on two of the best running backs they've seen all year in Jason Ellingham and Chandler White, and both these fumbles set up good field position for the offense and led to scores. And then especially after turnovers, they would get stopped. So after a 3-and-out, after Connor Sigelski threw his first interception, they forced a 3-and-out, and we got the ball back in the offense's hands. And that's really important if the offense is going to mess up.
Yeah, and they played a lot out of the shotgun, a lot more than usual, especially on a day where it was supposed to rain. We really don't see that a lot from the Marist offense. It was great to see kind of them mixing up the playbook and being a little bit harder to read. Flowery Branch was not expecting Marist to come out and shotgun in the first couple of plays. They took a deep shot on the second play to Josh. And really the receivers, Josh, Mitch, and Derek, were all making great plays all afternoon. It was really a great game to watch.
Yeah, and that offense has the talent to make great plays all throughout the game, and they have the talent they need to win games. Connor Sigelski, Josh Moore, Lincoln Parker, and Derek McDonald are just a few of the names. And that entire O-line, they feel like Thomas Rellauer, I talked to him, he said that they feel like they can go out there and score on every possession.
Yeah, and the scary thing for me, though, in that game was the two interceptions Connor Sigelski threw. He was playing against better defensive backs than he's faced probably all year, and that kind of concerned me because he's not playing against Chastity and White County anymore. He's playing tougher competition from here pretty much on out as we go into the playoffs. You need to see improvement from reading the defense-wise. They were switching up coverages, and it really messed with him. He threw two picks. One was just an very underthrown ball to Josh Moore.
Yeah, I didn't like that 50-50. I didn't like that decision.
The other one, he just missed the linebacker. You didn't see him.
Yeah, I will say the first pick is definitely his fault. He looked at the linebacker and assumed he was going to blitz. He was up near the line of scrimmage. He ended up dropping back into the zone. Siggy never saw him. But the second one, Josh did slip on that one. It wasn't as much his fault. It was definitely a ball he probably shouldn't have thrown. But if Josh is in, I think Josh with his DB background, he plays really good at defensive back all season. When you look at it, I think if he's not on the ground, he's able to bat that ball away and at least prevent an interception.
I think the reason he fell down is because he was trying to come back to the ball, and it caused him to trip up, and he fell down because that ball is a little bit underthrown.
It's definitely underthrown.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned that going back to the defense, they really out-physicaled Flowery Branch, and that's a good thing coming into this week. It's another physical team they're taking on in Blessed Trinity, but that really didn't phase that defensive line as they shut down the run almost all night. As you look at this week, Marist coming into the region championship against Blessed Trinity. Blessed Trinity coming into the game 7-1. The War Eagles coming in at 9-0. It's going to be a great battle, and it's a similar team to what you saw last week in Flowery Branch. Blessed Trinity and Flowery Branch both like to keep the ball on the ground a lot. For Flowery Branch, that was because Elijah Gainey got hurt to start the season, and they have a sophomore quarterback in Renard starting. For Blessed Trinity, that's because they lost their quarterback from last year, and they moved to a younger, more inexperienced quarterback this year. He's not as good of a thrower. He likes to run the ball, and then their talented backfield with Justice Haynes and Elijah Green, they are dominant back there.
Yeah, I think especially Elijah Green's really stood out to me in the film. He's fast, he's physical. I really have liked watching film on him. He's a really explosive back. One thing on Duncan Reeves, he's not really great at the deep ball. We've seen him miss a lot of deep balls, especially off play action, which is where BT will throw it most. He's pretty mobile, but he panics a lot in the pocket when he gets rushed. He has happy feet, as I call it. He's shuffling his feet up and down a lot in the pocket. He misses wide open receivers, and that's definitely part of it.
And you saw that a lot in the Denmark game. Denmark put about 9 guys, averaged 8 or 9 guys in the box almost every play. And so he would have single coverage on the outside. They'd be running crossing routes and stuff like that. If he could throw the ball on target, they could have touchdowns, but he was missing a bunch of those throws. And when you don't hit those throws, they'll keep adding guys into the box. And I would expect more of the same from Marist on defense, adding guys to the box as he keeps missing throws over the top. Unless he can show you that he can complete the balls, you're not going to leave guys back there in coverage.
Yeah, and especially because BT runs out of the I formation, which you don't see a lot in high school anymore, likely because of the loss of their quarterback last year, Jake Smith. But when they do throw it, a guy you should look out for is Carson Haroff. He's a wide receiver. He's a threat out wide. He can go up and get it. There's a couple plays against Flowery Branch when they threw the ball deep. One of them was a touchdown. He went up and got a 50-50 ball and scored on it. He's very athletic, but I think our corners, both Mitch and Charlie, should be able to lock him down. They're both pretty good cover corners.
Yeah, I had Carson Haroff highlighted in my notes. He's a great deep threat, and especially you saw him almost take a screen pass for a touchdown against Denmark at the end of the half. He's really their short. They throw it to him short. They throw it to him deep. He's just a playmaker at receiver.
Yeah, and going back to what you said about the formation, they'll run probably 75% of their plays out of I formation or offset I, with the two running backs, Elijah Green and Justice Haynes. JP, you touched on Elijah Green. I want to go back to Justice Haynes. The dude is explosive. He's powerful, and he's just a freshman. He'll have 4 years of eligibility over there at Blessed Trinity, and Marist is probably going to have to face him in all 4, and he's a threat. He's over 1,000 yards rushing already on the season in just 8 games. That's unheard of at the high school level, and part of that you have to give credit to their offensive line. Both lines for Blessed Trinity are physical, similar to Flowery Branch. Marist hadn't faced many physical opponents coming into the Flowery Branch game. They got some experience. Hopefully that tests their lines, and hopefully the Marist offensive and defensive lines can win the battle in the trenches. That'll be big again this week.
Yeah, this is going to be the most physical game of the year just because of the importance of running the ball. Just like last week, Flowery Branch loved to run the ball. BT, I think, even more. And since both teams are run-oriented, whoever wins the battle of the trenches, I think, is going to win this one.
Yeah, definitely also going into the defensive side of the ball, they have a really good front seven. You see them line up in 4-3 and 3-4. They blitz a lot out of 3-4, I noticed. They get to the quarterback a lot quicker out of a 3-4 defense. But while their front seven is great, I've only noticed really one corner who's I would call elite. Quentin Reeves, number 17. He's a great man-to-man corner. He's aggressive. He tracks the ball great. He has a 4.5 40-yard dash. But one player to watch out for, Matthew Frank, is getting picked on a lot in coverage is what I noticed throughout the games. He tends to get beat deep and lose his guy in the middle of the field. And when he panics a lot when the ball's thrown up in the air, and usually he'll hold the receiver or get a pass interference penalty.
Yeah, and with those weaknesses in the secondary, it'll be interesting to see whether Marist comes out of the shotgun like they did last week against Flowery Branch, or if they're going to start more with the triple. And you see in previous games, Marist has tended to come out of the shotgun a little bit more and then transition to triple later in the first quarter and to end out the half. But I wonder if they're going to continue with that trend.
And Connell, looking ahead to the playoffs, this is Marist's last game of the regular season. They're looking to make it a perfect 10-0 against Blessed Trinity. If you look ahead to the playoff matches, the Marist and Blessed Trinity matchup for the region championship, winner takes the 1 seed, loser takes the 2 seed in the playoffs. That'll put them on opposite sides of the bracket. But the winner is likely to take on Troup County, a semifinalist from last year. However, they lost a lot of talent. So the winner is likely to take on Troup County at home in the first round, and the loser likely to take on Cedartown in the first round. Both games that shouldn't cause them too much of problems. But you look at the sides of the brackets. If the winner will be on the left side of the bracket. They'll match up, as I said, with Troup County first round. But they'll have to have West Lawrence, most likely, along with Cartersville and Woodward Academy, all on that left side of the bracket. It's a likely quarterfinal matchup against West Lawrence, and then semifinal against the winner of Cartersville and Woodward. Whereas the other side, whoever's on the right side of the bracket, the 2 seed, they don't have to play as many good top 10 teams in 4A. I mean, on that side, you're looking at Sandy Creek, maybe the other top team, and both of those teams will be 2 seeds. So it'll be interesting to see. It's kind of you get the home field advantage by winning this game throughout a bunch of your playoff games, but then you might have to face the harder opponents earlier, so it's interesting.
And one last thing for BT, all the games that have been close for them, like Woodward, Denmark, and Flowery Branch, there's been a dominant QB performance on the opposing side. And like we said earlier, Connor Sigelski, his performance kind of drives the Marist offensive performance. And we will be covering this game on the NFHS network. It starts at 7:30, but make sure to tune in at 7:10 for the pregame show where we will be offering keys to the game and other analysis. And then after that, Phil Etheridge and Jerry Novak will be on the call for the game.
And especially at halftime and postgame, you'll get to see some more looks ahead into the playoffs and those brackets and such. I know there is another week of games, so the brackets won't be finalized, but after this week, you'll get a better look at who's going to be matching up with Marist in the first and second rounds. As we move on to the 4A Region 7 standings, in first place, Marist 5-0 coming into the week, coming off a big win, 27-0 over Flowery Branch last week. Blessed Trinity, they are 4-0 in region play, 7-1 overall. They're coming off a huge 40-plus point win over Chestatee last week. And then Denmark at 3-2, Flowery Branch at 2-2, White County 1-3, West Hall 0-4, and Chestatee 0-4. And you look at Denmark Flowery Branch, that's setting up for a huge game in 2 weeks' time to take third or fourth place in the region, and that'll determine some big playoff matchups first round as well. I believe the loser of that game will likely match up against Cartersville first round, and the winner takes Sandy Creek first round. So those will be some absolutely amazing games first round for those two
Is there really
teams.
a winner if you have to play Cartersville or Sandy Creek? I mean, they're both great teams. Really, I mean, they had a really competitive battle when they both played. I feel like no matter if you win or lose, you got a tough first game.
You got a tough first round game.
And not too many great games in the region. Just Marist BT is the main game for the region title. White County taking on Chestatee, and Flowery Branch against West Hall should be an easy win for Flowery Branch this week. As I said, the big game for the region after Blessed Trinity Marist, it's Flowery Branch Denmark in 2 weeks' time. As now we transition into the 4A standings. In first place, Marist 9-0, followed by Cartersville 9-0 and Woodward Academy 8-0. Blessed Trinity 7-1, Sandy Creek 7-1, West Lawrence 7-1, Flowery Branch 6-2, North Oconee 9-0, 8-1 Carver Columbus, and Oconee County rounds out the top 10 at 7-1. Denmark sitting just outside at number 11 at 6-2. Connell, any teams that really stand out to you in those standings?
Specifically, I'd say Cartersville, just because they've looked good in pretty much every game they played, especially in Sandy Creek. And I'd say Woodward. They have a chance to make some noise in this playoff. They haven't really been an impactful team in the playoff, and it looks like things are going their way this year.
Yeah, I would definitely have to go with the same teams, to be completely honest. I mean, you look at Cartersville, T. Webb's leaps and bounds ahead of where he was last year. He's really improved as a passer. You saw him against Sandy Creek really light up the scoreboard, and you see that offensive production along with Cartersville's great defense. They're definitely a team to watch, and Woodward's win over BT really opened my eyes for them. They weren't on my radar too much until that, and then after that, you start looking at them, and they've been really great all season.
I would also watch out for West Lawrence, who has been climbing up the rankings the past couple of weeks. They're at 7-1 and number 6 in the 4A. They climbed from out of the rankings, I think 3 weeks ago, all the way up to 6 in just a few weeks' time. As we take a quick check of the standings and the picks for the year, Connell leads at 35 points. He's 29 and 13 in regular games, and he's 2 for 5 on his upset picks. I'm second place at 33 points. I'm 27 and 15 in regular games, also 2 for 5 on upset picks. And JP, you're the bottom of the
hey,
three.
Read off those picks though. Regular picks. What's the record?
31 and 11 on regular picks.
And I believe that's the best out of all three of us.
But he's had the worst record for upset picks. He's 0-5.
Don't we have to worry about
upset picks are the highest weighted. So
0 for 5, JP. This week in high school, we're taking a look at a couple high school games. Number 21 in the state, Hillgrove, taking on number 4 Marietta in what is promising to be an absolute battle.
Yeah, this game's going to be a lot closer than the rankings say. It says number 4 Marietta versus number 21 Hillgrove. But Hillgrove played number 2 McEachern extremely close. They only lost by 5 in a game they really theoretically should have won. It was a bad call by the refs. But A thing for Marietta. I'm going to go with Marietta on this one, but a thing for them. They're inconsistent against good teams. They beat 2 nationally ranked out-of-state teams, which are St. Joseph's Prep and Edgewater, but they lost to 2 top 25 teams in Georgia. They lost by 2 to McEachern and lost by 14 to Grayson, that's pretty concerning considering their in-state matchups. They've lost to 2 of the best teams they've played, but they have 3 big-time recruits. Their tight end is the number 1 tight end in the 2020 class. He's committed to LSU. He committed last week. Eric Gilbert. He's not a blocking tight end. He looks like a wide receiver out there, and he can go up and make some plays. And their quarterback Harrison Bailey, he's committed to Tennessee, and one of their linemen BJ Ojulari, who's committed also to Tennessee. So I think Marietta with those recruits, it's going to be a very close game, mind me. But I'm going to take Marietta in this one.
Yeah, if you look at Marietta, there's talent on all sides of the ball. It's all around the field. This is a great team. And when you look at it, Connell, you mentioned all the great players on their offense. This is such an explosive offense. I don't see Hillgrove being able to slow them down enough. I'm going to take Marietta.
I'm going to object to that statement, JP. Hillgrove's defensive line is absolutely star-studded, led by the number 3 player overall in the country, Miles Murphy, the defensive end committed to Clemson. He's an absolute stud. The whole defensive line is massive. I think they'll be able to slow down that run. They're averaging only giving up about 13 or 14 points a game in 7A, which is unbelievably good against all those high-powered offenses. And they should be undefeated. They got robbed against McEachern.
That was a horrible call.
Horrible call. It was very last play of the game. Hit the pylon with the football. That's a touchdown. They should have beaten the number 2 team in the state, McEachern, so they should be undefeated.
Refs, man.
I think Marietta also, as you said, Connell, they're inconsistent and they haven't performed well in the big games in the state.
Mm-hmm.
They've gotten really hyped up because they've won those out-of-state games you mentioned, but against some of those teams in state, McEachern, Grayson, those are games they shouldn't be losing if they're going to be all the way up there at number 4 in the state. And so I'm going to take Hillgrove in the slight upset. Next game we'll take a look at is number 1 Lowndes taking on number 3 Colquitt. Lowndes is undefeated, and Colquitt coming in with 1 loss. I think Lowndes rolls again. Lowndes has looked just unbeatable this year.
They look great.
All-around good team. They don't have any of those top recruits that we're mentioning, but they play well together. They're very well coached, and they haven't had trouble against anybody so far. Whereas Colquitt showed their weaknesses in their loss to Valdosta. And last week, they were only up 7 after the first half against Tiff. That's not really acceptable.
Yeah, I'm also going to take Lowndes. They're ranked number 4 nationally by Max Preps. They really haven't shown any weaknesses all season. And across the 5 major ranking polls in Georgia, they're unanimously number 1. Some of their marquee wins, they beat number 15 Parkview earlier in the season, 38-7. And the common opponents between the 2 teams is number 7 Valdosta, as you were just saying. Colquitt County lost 49-50, and Lowndes dominated, winning 24-0. So that's enough to tell me Lowndes is going to keep rolling. They're going to improve to 10-0 in this one.
Yeah, there's really no better team in high school football right now for Georgia than Lowndes. They're playing incredible. They've played at a different level all season, and I don't think Colquitt can play up to that level. I think Lowndes is going to win this one.
Although I will say Colquitt is a very well-coached team. New coach coming in after Rush was fired last year, and they've performed well against some good teams in Georgia. I think that one might be closer than some people expect. Some people have said that Lowndes just looks unbeatable and will roll. I think Colquitt puts up a test, but I think Lowndes will win. Oconee County, North Oconee, probably besides Marist BT, that's probably the second biggest game in 4A of the week. That's High Five's game of the week. Number 10 in 4A is Oconee County. 8 in 4A is North Oconee. They're very similar teams. North Oconee undefeated, 9-0, and Oconee County coming in with 1 loss, I believe, to South Effingham. North Oconee has been ranked higher, but they haven't really beaten the top team. Neither team has beaten the top team, and their scores against common opponents are very similar. I think Oconee County wins this. They're led by quarterback Max Johnson, who's committed to LSU. He's a very talented quarterback, the LSU commit. I think that offense on Oconee County will get it done in another region championship this week.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree, though. I'm going to go with North Oconee. It all comes down to the common opponents for me. North Oconee has beaten their common opponents by more, destroying St. Pius, North Oconee beat them 44-0, whereas Oconee County beat them 21-7. And then Stevens County, which wasn't really an important game, North Oconee won 42-10, and Oconee County beat them 41-14. So it all comes down to the common opponents. Otherwise, other than that, the teams are pretty similar. But I think North Oconee is going to win.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Connell on that one. I think North Oconee, these two teams are very similar, but I feel like North Oconee just has that slight edge in those common opponents. They've played better against the teams they've both played, and I feel like North Oconee's just going to just barely edge out Oconee County in this one.
As we're going to transition here into college football, last week some interesting matchups and some interesting results. Kansas State did defeat Oklahoma, JP. What did we learn in that one?
We learned that K-State's legit and Oklahoma may be a little overrated. I mean, when you look at it, K-State dominated the entire game. It wasn't like they just came in the end and were able to pull it out. It was really K-State's ball game from the beginning. You saw the trick play interception right before the half, having K-State put points on the board. And there was a point where they were up by like 21, 24 points. I mean, they were absolutely dominating. Oklahoma tried to struggle to come back in this one, and Oklahoma couldn't get it done. The onside hit one of their players at the 9, and they just couldn't get anything going until it didn't matter, until it was garbage time. When you look at K-State, they have 2 losses. They were unranked. This is a really good team led by Skylar Thompson. And when you look at it, this could be a team, not playoffs, but definitely move up in the rankings as the weeks go on.
Yeah, and another important thing, Oklahoma showed their weakness in the run. Run defense, they allowed 5 touchdowns and over 200 yards rushing, which you can't do that, especially against a team like K-State. It's going to be a problem, but you get to playing bigger teams. Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah, and Auburn falls to LSU 23-20. Personally, I think the only thing we really learned in this one was how good Auburn's defense was.
Mm-hmm.
I think we already had enough to know how good LSU was, so I think that's all we took out of that one. And then Ohio State defeated Wisconsin 38-7. We learned a lot about Ohio State in this one. First of all, we learned who Chase Young really was. The dude's a beast on that defensive line for Ohio State. And then we also learned that offense, high-powered, and they're not going to be stopped by a pretty good defense in Wisconsin. So they're in one of the top teams coming into this week. I wouldn't be surprised if they get a few of those big wins against Penn State and Michigan at the end of the season, if you see them move up to number 2 or number 1 in the country.
Yeah, I want to throw back to LSU just for a quick second, just to say this game really proved to me that LSU's defense can make plays. Their offense wasn't doing as good, and their defense was able to hold Auburn down, really not giving up those big explosive plays like you've been seeing them give up the first few weeks. And it's really just been great to see LSU's defense finally showing up.
I don't agree with that at all, JP. I don't think LSU's defense is good at all.
They showed up this week.
They showed up against an absolutely horrible Auburn offense led by Bo Nix.
Yeah.
And they also did not show up at all against Vanderbilt. They
showed signs of life.
They gave up 38 points to Vanderbilt, JP.
All you can ask is that they showed signs of life on defense. They got playmakers, and their playmakers made plays
Auburn,
this
man.
week.
Did you see the play at the end of the first half where they gave up like 70 yards on a play that should have gone for like 5?
I mean, obviously they're not perfect. I'm saying they're improving. It's a good trend. They're trending in the right direction.
All right. I don't agree.
Going to our top 5 now?
No, we'll go on to best one-loss team. Who do y'all think the best one-loss team is, and B, who the best chance at getting into the playoff is for one-loss team?
I think the best one-loss team is Florida, just considering how they stayed in the game versus LSU's the number 1 ranked team in the nation now. And I think the team that also has the best chance of making the playoff is Florida, because it's either going to be Georgia or Florida, because if Florida beats Georgia this week, they have the chance to run the table, and then if they win the SEC championship, I think they're in the playoff.
I agree with you there, Connell. I do think Florida's the best one-loss team. We'll learn a lot about them this week in the Georgia-Florida matchup. We'll pick that one a little later on, but I think they control their own destiny pretty much. If they win out, they're in the playoff. But I think another team to look at is Oregon. They also have a good chance to make the playoff. I think just because of the schedule they have left, they've won some pretty good games against Pac-12 teams. They've figured out how to win games following that Week 1 loss to Auburn. And I think the committee likes to reward teams that lose early rather than late. I think since their loss came in the first week, and it's to Auburn, who's shown that they're pretty good especially on defense. So I think Oregon also has a decent chance at getting in.
Yeah, I'm also going to have to go Oregon. I think Oregon's the most complete defense. When you look at their secondary, they've played incredible all season. This is a team that's built on both sides of the ball. They have a great running game, and Justin Herbert's had an incredible season. He's going to go probably top 2 quarterbacks in the draft. I mean, I think he is out within the top 5 picks.
As we just talked about the best one-loss teams, now let's talk mostly about the best undefeated teams. JP, what are your top 5 rankings coming into this week?
Well, I'm glad that the polls decided to finally put my number 1 at number 1, LSU. Joe Burrow in that offense has been incredible. He's a dual-threat quarterback. They've had a really effective run game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is one of the best-kept secrets in college football. He's not someone anyone's talking about, but he is easily the best back in the SEC right now. He's been breaking off huge runs. He's been an incredible player all season. And Connell, I see you shaking your head, but I do believe Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the best back in college football right now, and their defense is finally showing up. And at number 2, they showed Alabama, showing they can win without Tua Tagovailoa. It showed that they're a more complete team. It made me have to think about that LSU at number 1, especially winning with a backup quarterback. There's weapons everywhere for Alabama, but I still have some defensive questions. Number 3, Ohio State. You saw them absolutely destroy Wisconsin. Dobbins and Fields have been on a tear, and Chase Young has proved he's one of the best defensive ends in the league right now. At my number 4, Penn State. They've had a great running game. They're one of the most complete teams. They've won against good ranked opponents, and their defense has been playing stout. They're winning versus ranked teams, as I said, and Ohio State game in November will be crucial. Now, my number 5 stays the same from last week. Clemson stays at number 5. They just haven't done enough to prove that they should be a top 4 team for me right now. They definitely have a lot weaker schedule, and ETN's been great, but Lawrence is a big question for me. I don't know. Trevor Lawrence has been turning the ball over a lot. And my team to watch, Baylor. They have big games coming up against Oklahoma and Texas. If they win out and win the conference, they're a playoff team 100%. They could be in the top 3, I think. They're scoring 38.9 points per game. They're beating good teams. And that K-State win looks really good right now because they dominated K-State. When you look at Charlie Brewer, he's been great in the passing game and the running game. John Lovett's been great. And Denzel Mims has been incredible all season too.
All right, as far as my top 5, I'm going to have to agree with JP. I got LSU now. They have more impressive wins than Alabama, and the debate between the top teams, LSU, Alabama, and Ohio State, and I think they have the most impressive wins out of any of those teams. 2, Alabama. As JP said, they proved they can win without Tua, but Tua is going to come back to play LSU. That's going to be a huge game, 1 versus 2. 3rd, I got Ohio State. They haven't shown weakness all year, possibly the best all-around team in college football. 4, I have Clemson. Haven't really played anyone yet, but haven't really struggled against anyone yet other than UNC. 5, Penn State. They shifted up after that Oklahoma loss. They're also a great all-around team that's in contention for the Big Ten title. And my team to watch, I got Florida. If they win against Georgia, they have a great chance of making the playoff if they can win the SEC championship. They control their own destiny, and if they win out, they're in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I'm keeping my top team the same as last week, Ohio State Buckeyes. The Ohio State University. They looked amazing this week against Wisconsin. Chase Young really emerged as one of the best defensive ends in the country, probably the best defensive end in the country.
He is definitely the best.
He was absolutely destroying Wisconsin on the line single-handedly, and that defense really proved themselves, and the offense just kept it going against probably one of the best defenses they've faced all year. LSU at number 2 and Bama at number 3. I think LSU just keeps winning big games, and when you win big games, you jump up in the rankings, passing Bama in the AP poll this week. Clemson at number 4. I thought they, for the first time this year, looked decent. They didn't turn the ball.
That's harsh,
They
man.
look decent.
They didn't turn the ball over. They converted in the red zone. They put up points. They looked good last week. So they moved up to 4, especially after Oklahoma losing. And at number 5, Penn State. Penn State looked great against Michigan State. In the elements, rain coming down, I thought that one might be close because of the defenses both teams had, but they really just dominated Michigan State. And I agree with you to watch out for Florida, and I also would like to watch out for Oregon again. I think they keep on winning games in the Pac-12. They might not be winning big, but in the Pac-12, you just need to win those games. If they keep winning, they don't have the hardest schedule to finish. They've already played some of the best teams in the Pac-12. And then if they can win that Pac-12 championship, they really present a problem to the committee.
Now let's talk about the situation that opened up due to Oklahoma's loss. Now this Alabama LSU game coming up in a week has huge implications on the playoff, and I think if that game's close, and what do I mean by close is 10 points or less. If the game's close, and the team from the West wins the SEC championship, I think Alabama and LSU will both make the playoff. I think if it's that way, even if Oregon wins out and wins a conference championship, I think Alabama or LSU would make it in over them.
So you're saying, wait, you said the West would win, right? What
Yeah,
if
I
the
think
East
the West
wins?
If the East wins, then it's out the door. Then I don't think both of those teams make it.
Yeah, but the SEC still could get 2 in. As we look at a big East game this week in the SEC, number 6 Florida, number 8 Georgia, neutral site in Jacksonville. That's our first pick of the week in college. I'm going to take Florida. Florida has been getting back healthy on that, especially on that defensive side of the ball. Against LSU, they weren't exactly healthy. That's why they gave up 42 points. But you saw them healthy against Auburn, and that healthy defense is very scary for Florida. I think also Georgia just has been performing rather lackluster in the past couple of weeks. I know they're coming off a bye. Maybe they'll look a little sharper this week. But I think Florida pulls it out. It's a neutral site, so nobody really has home field advantage.
It's always 50-50 there.
It's always in Jacksonville. So I think Florida pulls this one out.
I'm also going to go with Florida. As you mentioned, the defensive line is starting to get healthy. Jonathan Greenard and Jabari Zuniga. When both of these players are healthy, Florida gave up about 2 yards per carry earlier in the season. And when neither are there, they gave up about 6.5 yards per carry. So you can see the immediate impact they make when they're back there. And I think the biggest factor in this game is whether Florida can get pass rush on Jake Fromm. If Jake Fromm can sit in the pocket, he'll pick you apart with those little back shoulder passes. He can hit like no one else in college football. But if Florida can get that pass rush, which is going to be tough. It's going to be really tough because Georgia has the best offensive line in the country. I think that's been determined. They've only given up 4 sacks this year. But if they can muster some pass rush, I think it's going to be extremely difficult because you know how Kirby Smart likes to run his offense. He likes to run on 1st and 2nd down, and then if it's 3rd and long, he throws the ball. So if you can get him deep on 1st and 2nd down, you're going to force Jake Fromm to throw the ball, which he's been kind of problematic in the last couple of weeks. However, on the Florida side, Kyle Trask has looked great in recent games. So I think Florida's going to pull it out.
Yeah, that's going to go 3-0 for Florida then with us because I think Florida pulls this one out. Fromm's been struggling, and this Florida team has a great defense. I think Trask has been playing great, and I think he's going to be able to pull it out. I think Trask is going to outplay Fromm in this one, even though these are 2 great defenses. Fromm's been struggling the past few weeks, and I just don't like what I'm seeing from Georgia.
Our other main game of the week in college is host of College Game Day. It's Memphis and SMU. At Memphis, they're ranked number 24 in the country with 1 loss on the season, facing undefeated SMU. I think SMU might get it done again this week. They've been rolling lately. They've been improving. And they've started 8-0 and can't really fight that. And for Memphis, they did not look good at Tulsa last week at all. It was way too close. Tulsa's not that good of a team this year. They are 2-5, maybe.
2-5.
Yeah, and Memphis 1 possession game there came down to the last kick of the game. So I think SMU keeps it rolling for at least this week.
I'm also going to go with SMU. This is perhaps the most even matchup we've had all season in terms of picks because both these teams have won 4 games. By 1 possession. And you mentioned the Memphis win. They should have lost. If Tulsa makes that field goal, they lose the game. And Tulsa also could have beat SMU earlier in the season. That went to triple overtime. But the reason I pick SMU is because their offense is so dominant. They're averaging over 500 yards per game. I don't know if Memphis can contain them.
Yeah, I know Memphis isn't going to slow down this SMU offense, and I don't think this Memphis offense can outscore SMU's offense, so I'm going to go SMU on this one. You look at it, they've been playing great all season, and Memphis, you mentioned, should have lost to Tulsa last week. Their 1 loss on the season to Temple. Temple's a good team, but not a great team. I don't like Memphis, how the teams that they're playing close aren't great. I'm going to have to take SMU in this one.
As we go into our upset picks, Connell, who are you taking for us upset?
I am going to take Tulsa over Tulane. Now, we were just talking about SMU and Memphis, and Tulsa lost 2 really close games to them. They could have beaten them theoretically in that triple overtime game if they hadn't given up. They gave up basically 21 points in the last quarter, which doesn't happen a lot. And if they make that field goal, they beat Memphis. So if you consider those 2 things, they're 4-3. They're a good team. Tulane they've been a little over, in my opinion. They've won a couple games in the last few seconds. They're a 10.5 point favorite in this one. And they only lost, not Tulane. Tulsa only lost by 1 to Memphis. So I think this game, it's anyone's hands, and I think it's the best chance for Tulsa.
JP, haven't gotten one right. Who are you taking this week?
I'm saying UAB, the University of Alabama Birmingham, 3 years back from getting rid of their football program completely, takes out the SEC team, Tennessee.
He's going to go in 6.
I got...
He's going to be 0-6
I got
after this
some
one.
stats to back this one up. UAB is ranked 13th against the pass, just below Oregon. 8th against the run, above Ohio State. 6th on third down, above Clemson. 5th as far as first downs allowed, above Wisconsin and Ohio State. 2nd in fumbles forced and recovered with 12. 7th in passing yards allowed. They've only given up 4 out of 13 fourth down attempts. This defense is incredible. This is the 5th overall ranked defense in the nation right now. They have not allowed a team. They have not allowed a team to score 20. They have not allowed a team to score 20 points this season.
Who have they played, JP?
26 sacks. They're going to play Tennessee, and they're going to beat Tennessee.
That's who they're going to play. Who have they played?
Hey, they're above Washington in passing offense.
All right.
They are above Alabama in pass yards per completion.
All right, dude, we get it.
Hey, I got one more thing.
No.
On their offense this time, running back Spencer Brown's coming back after having an injury. It's been a bye week. They have a lot of preparation for this game, and UAB's been trying to feed Brown, and I think he goes crazy in this one.
I'm going to say there's absolutely
Connell, here's
zero
their
chance
schedule.
that
Here's their schedule.
No, UAB is beating Tennessee. It's happening.
JP, first of all, they beat Alabama State by 5 points.
They're winning.
They played Akron. They played South Alabama.
Tennessee, though.
They lost to Western Kentucky. They beat Rice. They lost.
Rice is 0-8, by the way.
Yes,
just to
they
give some
are
context.
0-8. They beat UTSA. They beat Old Dominion. So they've beat
Old Dominion is also 0-8, I think.
Yeah.
So they beat 2 teams that have a combined 0-16 record, and then the rest of those. So
don't trash it till it's going to happen.
JP,
I'm saying UAB is going to upset Tennessee. Look at Tennessee; they haven't played good all season either.
Yes, they have.
My upset is a little more reasonable. I have Virginia Tech.
That's not reasonable.
Taking down Notre
Yes, it
Dame.
is.
Notre Dame looked absolutely horrible against Michigan last week. I know Michigan played their best game of the season, but Notre Dame played terrible. Their offense is similar to Auburn's. They don't succeed very much. They rely on their defense way too much. And Virginia Tech has been quietly going about their business. They're 5-2 on the season. They beat Miami and they beat UNC in 6 overtimes last week. Absolutely crazy game. But they've been going about their business. Only 2 losses on the season, both in the ACC, I believe. So I think Virginia Tech has a chance, given that Notre Dame just looked bad last week and is coming off a terrible loss. So I think Virginia Tech has more of a chance than UAB does. We'll move into the MLB playoffs to wrap it up today. Tonight, Greinke versus Scherzer in Game 7 of the World Series. JP, who are you taking?
I have to take the road team on this. The road team's won every single game so far. I'm taking the Nationals in this one. They made a big mistake, though. After Game 2, they practiced their parade. You can't be practicing your parade after Game 2. Astros came storming back with 3 straight wins. Altuve and DeSoto have played incredible for both teams, and I think the home team is not going to win this one. It's been a really entertaining series, but home team has not won. Home team's 0-6 in this series, and I think it goes to 0-7.
I am going to take the Nationals as well, going along with the trend of the road team winning pretty much every game. Max Scherzer's pitching in this one versus Greinke. Greinke has won one game all playoff during the entire playoffs, and Scherzer's look pretty dang good. And Juan Soto also
Soto.
also plays for the Nationals. So he's been on fire this playoff. I think Nats win it in 7. Which I don't think if you went to the beginning of the playoff and go the Nats are going to win the World Series in 7 games versus the Astros, I don't know what I don't know what I would have said to that.
That early celebration, it's a curse.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna take the Astros in this one. I think they got it. I picked last week. I said Greinke after the Astros had lost 2 games in a row. I said Greinke's got this for them. He hasn't played well all postseason, but he's gonna come up clutch and he's gonna win 2 games. He already won his first game. I think he's got it tonight. He's gonna win their second game. The Astros are gonna win their second World Series in 3 years. And Scherzer hasn't pitched since game 1, so he's not really fresh. He hasn't pitched in
He's not really fresh.
Over
I think
a week.
he's pretty fresh if he hasn't pitched in over a week.
He only went 5 innings and 2 earned runs, and the back spasms kind of scare me. So I think Greinke's got this.
Hey, last day of baseball for a while, so better be good.
And JP, in case you're wondering, going back to your UAB pick,
UAB is going to beat Tennessee.
Hold on, let me say this. JP, let me say this. They've played 1 team with a winning record this season.
Whoa.
And it was Western Kentucky, and they lost that game.
They've been great. They've been great the past 3 seasons, and Tennessee hasn't looked great either.
2 of their wins come against 0-8 teams, and the third win comes against a 1-7 team. So check the strength of schedule.
Crazier things have happened in college football.
Well, the one thing I can guarantee you after this week is that JP will be 0-6 in upside picks.
I will be 1-5.
I agree with you there, Connell. That'll do it for this week's episode of the podcast, season 2, episode 6. As we said in the beginning, be sure to tune in at 7:10 on Friday night to the MBC pregame show as Marist takes on Blessed Trinity for the Quad A Region 7 title. Game starting at 7:30 with Phil Etheridge and Jerry Novak on the call. Be sure to tune in to the NFHS network for that one. Thanks for tuning into our podcast again this week. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you again next week. But for us, signing off today, have a great week, and hopefully Marist can pull it out against BT on Friday.